Merry Christmas and welcome to Moderate Fantasy Violence, a podcast about pop culture and the world around it. I'm Alistair.
And I'm Nick.
And in this last live episode of 2018, we will be reviewing Aquaman, the lone DC film of the year, and then asking who would throw a better Christmas party, the Justice League or the Avengers. But before all of this, Nick, do you have anything to recommend to our listeners?
Yes, I unusually went to the cinema twice in this last fortnight to see the other big superhero release of our time, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, the new animated Spider-Man film from Sony in which basically 5 different versions of Spider-Man team up to fight an interdimensional threat, which weirdly is the Kingpin. If I was making an interdimensional film, I don't know if I'd choose the man in a suit as the villain, but they seem to have pulled it off. As you may have heard if you've been on the superhero pop culture liking internet, this film has gone down amazingly well. It's been a critical smash. I listened to the Mark Kermode review on BBC Radio and even he loved it. So yeah, it will probably bring you no major shocks to discover that I, a lifelong Spider-Man fan, also really loved it. It's a film which somehow, despite telling a not that grounded sort of cosmic interdimensional story, really comes across as a meditation on meditation. That's wanky. A real ponderance on what it means to be Spider-Man and how it applies to not just poor, sad, defeated Peter Parker, but all of us. Yeah, the main character, as you may have heard, is Miles Morales, the alternative version of Spider-Man who was introduced in the comics about, probably between 5 and 10 years ago at this point, and has, unlike a lot of these alternate versions, actually stuck around and become a reasonably common feature of the universe and appeared in Avengers books and so on. And yeah, he's now in the movies as well. I think everyone kind of assumes they'd just wait till Tom Holland aged out or had enough and then replace him with Miles Morales, but instead they've brought him in early in the animation. And it also features an older, middle-aged, on the verge of quitting Peter Parker from an alternate reality, and some others, including Nicolas Cage as the black and white noir Spider-Man, and the Looney Tunes animated version, Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham. Which is a joke, but as Alistair was currently demonstrating, really doesn't get old fast. But yeah, it's a great film. It's incredibly fun. As you may or may not have noticed if you've been paying attention to our superhero coverage, I don't give a shit about the cartoon adaptations for the most part, and therefore, nor does Moderate Fantasy Violence. But yeah, I was impressed by the sheer amount and enthusiasm of good reviews for this film, so I went to check it out, and I did not regret it. I think, as I say, even if you're not a lifelong Spider-Man fan like myself, this is definitely worth seeing. And also, it's gorgeously, amazingly animated. The graphics in it is beautiful, so it is worth considering a trip to the cinema if you fancy, or at the very least, grab it on Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, it's gone down very well with my Twitter timeline. Quite a lot of people have, saying that this is the sort of Spider-Man they wanted to see and things like that. And so it's gone down well with the Spidey fans.
It's gone well with everyone if I know who's seen it, really. Yeah. I mean, I'm spoilers, I'm going to say some not entirely negative things about Aquaman shortly, but this is much better. This is definitely the best superhero film released in the last fortnight. And although I will be somewhat advocating for give Aquaman a chance. Yeah, if you can see only one, go and see this. It's not just good, but actually really great.
I saw from the trailer and some of the clips that each different Spider-Man or different universe has a different animation style, which was quite an ambitious project.
Yeah. They've done Peter Porker in the sort of Looney Tunes animated style. There's a version of Spidey who's a little Japanese girl inside an enormous spider mech, and they really got all in on the manga style for her. And the style done for Miles Morales is actually quite cool. Some of Spider-Gwen, the cool female Spider-Man from an alternate reality, where Spider-Man's dead girlfriend didn't die and instead became the resident Spider-Person.
Yeah.
That's done in a sort of, I guess, what you tend to recognise as the sort of predominant animated style of our times, the sort of DreamWorksy, slick cartoon look. Yeah. But the Miles Morales universe, the main one, is actually done in a really interesting, cool, Technicolor way. It's quite impressive to look at. And obviously, as I say, that's the primary style of the film, so you get quite a lot of that, and it's really cool. And there's a lot of fun comic shout-outs as well. Yeah, I could rant about this all day, but it's not technically the main thing we're here to talk about, so I probably shouldn't. Oh, Nicolas Cage is playing Spider-Man Noir, doing these sort of impassioned monologues about how sometimes he burns a match down to his fingers just to feel something. And
that sounds like Nicolas Cage.
It's ludicrous. I saw there's a video somewhere on the internet of the cast being filmed as they record their lines, and a lot of them are just, talking to the microphone like normal people, whereas Nicolas Cage is gesturing wildly at it as he gives these stupid speeches. It's great.
He emotes with his whole body, I think, Nicolas Cage.
He does. I think he was threatening to either destroy or beat up the microphone. So anyway, yes, that's what I've seen this fortnight, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. What about you, Alistair?
Well, I've got something to recommend to our listeners, but it's something we've already recommended, and I guess it's more of a revisit, which is...
We're not doing Sabrina again, are we?
No, although I would recommend Sabrina. Also, stay tuned to the next episode, find out if it makes the top 5 TV shows of the year. But recently I saw the end of the new series of Doctor Who. So it's the end of the series headed by Chris Chibnall and with Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor.
Yes, I too saw that.
I thought this was a good opportunity to just reflect on the series as a whole, because we're not going to do like a whole episode on it, I think. But I think overall, I've enjoyed it. It's not been without its flaws, but I do think that Jodie Whittaker was very good. And a lot of people I talked to, and myself, agree that the Moffat plots have become just too convoluted and too confusing and had sort of quite unsatisfactory payoffs. So I've actually kind of preferred going back to like a simpler plotting structure in that every episode is pretty much episodic. There's some character development arcs and, there's a sort of the beginning and end kind of link up. But other than that, it's not got some like crazy convoluted plot. So that, I thought, that was a welcome change after the Moffat years. And the cast were good. Jodie Whittaker especially was very, very good as the Doctor. There were some particularly good individual episodes, like the one about the partition of India, I thought was good. The one about some medieval witches was quite scary as well. I quite liked the Amazon Kablam episode as well. That was quite clever. So yeah, I mean, overall, good series for Doctor Who this year.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is I did pick up on it a bit after being mildly disparaging towards the start. I thought the second half of the series picked up quite a lot. I liked the 3 episodes you just mentioned because they were all in the second half of the series. I also quite enjoyed the sort of haunted house one.
Yes.
With the blind girl in the empty house.
Yeah, that was good. Then one set in Norway, yeah.
Yeah, I thought they were really good. Although I will admit, I thought the actual finale of the series did end it on a bit of a, oh, was that it moment. I was not blown away by the last episode. I never felt like it really got much drama going. It just seemed to be lots of people shouting and saying words, and it never seemed that exciting. But yeah, until the actual last episode, I was actually picking up on it. I think Jodie Whittaker has a lot of potential when she's given the right scripts. And hopefully they can, pick things up a bit next year and give her more of the right scripts.
Yeah, it was good. I think what we discovered is that, I guess which might be unsurprising to some people, but is that the Chris Chibnall episodes weren't the strongest ones. So a lot of people think the series got off to a rocky start because there was about 3 or 4 Chris Chibnall ones towards the beginning. So it improved after that. I think kind of after the spider one, it kind of got a lot better. I think that was like the 4th episode. So if you watched as far as the episode with the giant spiders, I basically would have thought, that's got a bit naff, hasn't it? And turned off then. It is actually worth going back to.
Yeah, I think Chris Chibnall wrote or co-wrote all the first 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And the last one. So yes, it is not, as you say, perhaps not a huge surprise if you listen to our previous coverage to discover that basically I thought it got a lot better when Chris Chibnall stopped writing them and then perhaps dropped off again when he came back. So, yeah, God, is this how it feels to be someone who didn't like Stephen Moffat for years, stuck not liking the showrunner, thinking, the show is so much better when the showrunner isn't writing it. Well, as someone who was more or less on board with Moffat for most of his run, I guess it was my turn really, wasn't it? For all that I don't entirely vibe with Chris Chibnall's writing style, as people have pointed out, the ratings are apparently up and the show seems to be doing pretty alright, so as long as someone's enjoying it, then that's fine. If it is going to keep going basically indefinitely, and if it is going to relaunch as a new show with a different tone every time, as I think I said when we last covered it, if it's not always entirely for me, then so be it.
Yeah.
Jodie Whittaker's already signed up to film her second series, and if she lasts the same amount of time as the last few, she'll be gone the year after that, so, these things cycle endlessly on.
They do, yeah. But yeah, I enjoyed the first Whittaker series, and I'm just slightly disappointed we're going to have to wait to 2020 for the next one, because I think next year there's only the New Year's special, that's it.
Yeah. Although, plus side, it means we don't have to worry about the fact that we can't include the Christmas special in our end of year roundup.
That's a good point.
Doesn't count, does it?
It doesn't count.
Right, and now it's time for the main feature, the other superhero film we'll be talking about this episode. It's Aquaman from the DC Cinematic Extended Universe, or whatever it's called, starring Jason Momoa as the main character, continuing from his appearances in, well, very briefly in Batman v Superman and more so in Justice League, as Arthur Curry, the son of a lighthouse keeper and the Queen of Atlantis, who must accept his destiny in the way that such characters often do. If you enjoyed Thor and Black Panther, it's another ruler of a secret kingdom superhero film, starring also an impressively A-list galaxy of random people appearing to play background characters, actually. Amber Heard's there as his love interest, Nicole Kidman's there. So yeah, this is Aquaman's feature-length full debut, and it's as Alistair said earlier, the only DC film of this year, so hard to say whether the success of this has huge implications for the future of the universe, or whether it suggests that they're just kind of releasing this because they'd already made it. But either way, we've seen it. Alistair, what did you think?
Yeah, so I would say this film was average to good. Certainly not great, but at times it was good. Yeah, it gets the thumbs up, at least for most of the film. I mean, for a DC film, it's pretty good. It's probably the best one they've done since Wonder Woman, or the best one they've done overall after Wonder Woman. For a Marvel film, it's probably, I don't know, it would be one of the weaker ones of this year. It's maybe about as good in quality as Ant-Man and the Wasp, in that it had a good plot and was alright, but also had some flaws. I mean, just to start by saying what I liked about it is that it was funny and entertaining. That was definitely an entertaining film. I was not bored. It was well paced, considering it was quite long. When I saw the running time was 2 hours 20 minutes, I was a bit like, is this going to drag? But actually no, it was really well paced. It had some good action scenes, likeable main characters, and Jason Momoa had humour and charisma in the main part. So those were the things that were good about it, and there were certainly previous DC films that haven't managed to clear that low bar of, entertaining, fun, decent characters. Might come to what I don't like about it in a bit.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed this. I probably can't aggressively argue for it being a genuinely great film and something deserving of wider Oscar consideration. But I do think it's nice to see, I don't know, a DC film that is willing to, somewhat embrace the sillier aspects of the backstory after several which seemed a bit confused what to do with them. So yeah, Aquaman surprisingly is a lot of fun. It's sort of zippy, knowingly absurd. It blasts through the plot at, as you say, a decent pace considering how thumpingly long it is. I still think, if we're being honest, it probably could stand to lose about half an hour without massively suffering. Like, I don't think it needed to be 2 hours, 20 minutes, but I do think it did a surprisingly good job of actually going through its 2 hour, 20 minutes without feeling like a slog. Like, it's only slightly shorter than Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice. Whereas I spent a large chunk of that film staring into space, wondering about the passage of time. This is... I was mostly very much with it the whole time, so fair enough to it. And as I say, I liked the fact that it actually seemed to have some sort of vision for its undersea world, which was obviously what a lot of the film was resting on. That's the sort of thing a real critic would say. Was, I think, doing a lot to underpin it. I mean, that is, of course, also where you get into one of the weaknesses, because as you say, the good stuff about this is it actually felt like a tangible, interesting undersea world. Well, okay, a tangible undersea world. And Jason Momoa had a lot of charisma and was quite a good person to go through this with. The downside is that they didn't do a hugely amazing job of, I don't know, kind of much like Asgard in the 4 films, to be honest. The undersea world, although it looked very cool and was very well realised, in fact, to be honest, probably more well realised than 4's Asgard, which always has felt like one building, with some people sort of walking in circles around it. Yeah. Whereas this did do a bit of a better job of feeling like an actual whole separate world. But it was full of boring people who spoke in stock fantasy dialogue. Yeah. Which is the unfortunate part, because I think this film would probably have got a lot. Like, it may have actually jumped several spaces up the is this good ladder if it had just had a Loki, for lack of a better term. Yeah. Like, a few memorable, charismatic people you actually cared about on the Atlantis side. Because the closest they had to that was the love interest, Mira, who was likeable and had good chemistry with Jason Momoa, but wasn't, to be honest, that brilliantly deep and nuanced a character either. Yeah. Whereas Thor had quite a shallow, slightly, I guess that's fine, version of Asgard. But on the other hand, characters like Loki, and even to a lesser degree, but still Odin and Idris Elba's Heimdall are kind of memorable. Yeah. Whereas this had quite a lot of generic people who just spoke in shouty King of the Sea language. And that's unfortunate, because that is probably the one big thing holding it back from getting beyond a sort of a bit above average, that was quite a fun review, which is what I'm ultimately going to have to give it, even though I do think it was actually quite good fun. And if you're up for that sort of film, and I do think it has interesting things to say about it in comparison to other superhero films, like the fact it actually felt like a movie. It actually had a quest structure. The character actually went on a clear journey through the film, whereas a lot of superhero films, which I think is a bit of a nod to the comics they come from, are structured around, there's like it seems like they have this, even if it's only a film by itself, it has a status quo. The character exists in a place, and they have fights, and then they go back to that place, and then they have more fights. Yeah, it never quite. There's something that makes it feel very sort of stop-start staccato, rather than like a clear story and a clear narrative being told over a period of time, which this did feel like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's good and interesting. It did actually help make it feel like something other than a Marvel film, which is good, I think.
Yeah, there was definitely a sense of progression, and the character went on a journey, like I say, and the journey was well handled. It was fairly standard, sort of the kind of standard plot you get from sticking very closely to kind of script writing guides. Like, there's an equilibrium, the character breaks it, he enters like a strange new world, like Atlantis under the sea. He has a conflict, this time with his half-brother, the king of Atlantis. You know, he's given an opportunity to solve the conflict by fighting him. That doesn't involve, you know, changing or growing as a person. He loses the fight, you know, in the second act because he's not changed and he's not willing to embrace the change, so he suffers a setback. He goes on a journey, learns about himself, grows as a person, finds a new weapon, becomes more confident, has a moment of doubt, and then ultimately overcomes his doubt, embraces the changes, and succeeds at the end. It's a standard, well-executed structure. It's not winning any prizes for originality or original executions, but it is a competent story that sticks together, and like you say, takes the character on a journey, and there's a clear development and things like that. One of the things that I didn't like about it from this is that there were a few problems with the structure, mainly that the doubt bit didn't really work in that.
That wasn't great.
There's a big fight in the middle of the film, which is pretty spectacular, against one of the film's two main villains.
In fact, to be honest, that was way better than the fight at the end.
Yes, it was better than the fight at the end. Yeah, there was a spectacular fight in the middle of the film. For those of you who've seen the trailer, it's the one with them running across rooftops in Italy. And then after that, for some reason, after winning this fight, Aquaman has a moment of doubt for some reason, and basically just like, I've just spent my whole time having my ass kicked, and you've pretty much won every fight you've been in, apart from the one against the big villain in the second act. So I felt like this moment when, for some reason, it just felt like, he must doubt at some point, and then overcome his doubts, which happens quite quickly. I just felt this kind of... It was very much... He goes on an arc, but pretty much Aquaman succeeds in everything he sets out to do, and there's not a lot of dramatic tension in that, and when they try to inject some dramatic tension, it seems quite out of place.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, as you say, he just felt he basically moped on a boat for about 5 minutes, and then Mira gave him what wasn't even that strong a pep talk, and he just felt better. Like, I mean, if they wanted to give him, real reason to doubt, I mean, I get how they wanted to move away from this slight cliche, but they could have quite easily injured Mira or something, or given him some way in which he both won and lost that fight.
Yeah.
I guess they did kind of get his ass kicked, but he seemed to recover quite quickly. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I don't know, I felt that he didn't have to really do anything or change anything to overcome the low point in his story. You know, he was supposed to be his lowest point, and then that's the point when he seizes the desire to change, grows as a person, and comes back. But he didn't have to really do anything to seize his desire to change. It's just kind of it didn't work as a plot point. It didn't work at this moment when he's supposed to kind of suffer a big setback, realise the extent to which he must embrace the change, and then embrace it in order to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't entirely know how much of this speaks to Jason Momoa's limits as a performer. He is a very good, sort of solid presence in this film. He always come across as a good, decent bloke who's fun to be around. Which, that's very much his general persona, I think. The part that does kind of fall down on is, I don't know if the film really does capture sort of terrifying lows and dazzling highs. His performance doesn't, as you say, massively go down to, oh God, all is lost, and then rise triumphantly, really.
Yeah.
He's always just a good dude.
Yeah, his performance is a bit one note. I mean, he's got charisma, and he's the sort of person you want to, lead up your action movie. You can act about... as well as say like Arnie could back in his heyday. I mean, Jason Momoa is a good leading man action star, but he is not as good an actor as even someone like Cumberbatch or Downey Jr., who are also in superhero films.
Yeah, I mean, reluctant I am to make yet another Thor comparison. I don't think he's even pulls the arc quite as well as Chris Hemsworth did.
No.
Although I do think in some ways this is a better structured film than the first Thor was.
Yeah.
It's a very similar story, but the first Thor film always felt a bit weird and lollopy, whereas this does at least feel quite tightly structured.
Yeah, what I didn't like about the first Thor film is that you can kind of see the structure it's supposed to be, which is Thor is kind of a victim of his own hubris and self-confidence. He sends to Earth to learn to be a bit humble in order to overcome his limitations to then come back and succeed in the end. It's a similar sort of plot arc to this, except Thor goes to Earth and beats everyone up on Earth and doesn't have to learn anything about humility or being humble. And whereas at least in this film, it's kind of, Aquaman fights his brother in the second act. His brother wins because Aquaman has not grown as a person. He then goes on a clear journey with, some emotional highs and lows. and, achieves something and then comes back to victory at the end. I mean, yeah, it works better as a character journey. I just didn't think Thor goes on much of a journey in the original Thor film. I can see what they were going for, but I just don't think they really achieved it.
He falls in love with Natalie Portman. I guess that's meant to be him learning an appreciation for humanity.
Yeah.
If by appreciation you mean the desire to bone it.
Maybe. We'll leave Thor goes around the cosmos putting his penis in things in the film.
I mean, to be honest, that's probably what younger, less reconstructed pre-redemption Thor did. I mean, there's certainly plenty of comics about Thor's earlier drunken lout stage. I imagine that putting his penis in things was probably just off panel.
Okay. Right, now that we've firmly covered Thor's penis.
Now that we know where Thor's penis was, let's get back to Aquaman.
That's right, Aquaman, yeah. One thing I didn't like about this film, and it's a bit odd that I kind of said, I thought this film was alright, but then I've got a list of criticisms. But one of the things I didn't like, which might be an unpopular opinion, is that I actually found it kind of tonally a bit odd. Like, what I did like about the fact that it had action and jokes in it, which obviously is the kind of, as we discussed before this podcast, the winning formula for your 12A moderate fantasy violence action blockbuster is to have your action plus jokes. And obviously there's films like DC, like Batman versus Superman, that really just groan for the fact of not having any humour at all, and it is a real problem with those films. But there's something about the tone that didn't quite work for me here. I kind of felt that the humour and the action didn't mesh, although they were both present. It didn't feel like they were sitting along each other pretty comfortably. Like, I felt sometimes like the humour kind of detracted from what was supposed to be the serious bits, and the serious bits were a bit too pompous for a film that kind of wants to make you laugh as well. Whereas I was thinking, compare this to, say, the original Guardians of the Galaxy or Spider-Man Homecoming, that's managed to hit really, really intense, dramatic beats and have really, really funny bits as well. And it all sort of works together. Like, Spider-Man Homecoming had me like pretty much rolling on the floor laughing at points. But then the reveal about the identity of Vulture is a powerful dramatic beat and leads to a very tense scene that follows. So I think it kind of all worked together to create a film that is kind of funny and tense. Whereas this film was kind of funny or tense, if you understand what I mean.
I think they were going for a slightly different tone, again, to a lot of the Marvel stuff, which was interesting, and I don't know if they always hit it, but I think they were going for, rather than this sort of, I don't know, slightly teenage self-aware snark thing, there was a bid for some sort of, like, family adventure film going on. It
was more clownish than sarcastic.
Well, yeah, like, there were jokes, like we've talked about Joss Whedon-y banter, and I think this is actually a prime example of a film that contains banter, but it's not particularly Joss Whedon-y.
No.
Like, the jokes are funny because the man's fallen over or because the woman has just eaten a flower.
Yeah.
The jokes don't necessarily require tongue-in-cheek pop culture awareness or, look, we're doing the trope. Look, we're subversing the trope. Look, we're aware we're in a genre film.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of... They know it's silly, but they're not making too many, or possibly any. I haven't memorised the scripts. There's probably a couple. But they're not really making clever, smug, meta-awareness remarks about it or being sarcastic about how silly it all is. It's just, as you said, kind of clownish. It's just, the jokes are just silly jokes. It's a film that feels a bit more aimed at actual, kids, or maybe younger kids, rather than the Marvel films always feel like they're going for teenagers and people on the emotional level of teenagers.
Yeah, it's probably pitched, you're right, a slightly younger age, and you're right, it doesn't have the kind of self-aware Joss Whedon humour. It strikes me actually, it's kind of very Homer Simpson humour, and Homer Simpson is a character who does fall over and eat flowers, and it's funny. So, it's kind of like, the humour they're aiming at is kind of the dumber Simpsons jokes. And don't get me wrong, the dumb Simpsons jokes are hilarious. It's always funny when Homer falls over, at least in the early series. But yeah, I think you're right that the tone they were aiming for was not the sort of self-aware tone. But for me, it just felt like it didn't quite work as a thing. And I know I'm probably being a bit unarticulate with this opinion. It's just like, even though there was a kind of, yes, you identify that a good action film needs action and humour, but they need to work together to a degree. But it was an improvement to have action and humour.
Again, I think a lot of it would have been improved if the Atlantis stuff just felt a bit less stodgy. I think there's just a bit too much pompous people talking in a slightly humorless way about, both humorless and not that interesting way about Atlantean politics.
Yeah.
Where you just sat through those scenes going, go on, spin on, do your bit so we can get back to Jason Momoa, come on.
Yeah,
And
especially there's the villain's plot basically involves him going to places where the hero isn't and doing things that doesn't involve the hero. So it always felt a bit sort of superfluous.
yeah, it gave an excuse to do a few nice special effects bits. Oh, look, it's a new trial of underwater people.
Yeah.
But that aside, it was a bit dull. Thankfully, most of those bits are comparatively brief and fairly well spaced out.
Yeah.
But still, as I've basically already said at least twice now, the Atlantean stuff not quite working and just coming across as slightly pompous and generic is probably the biggest single fault of this film for me, aside from maybe some of the structural stuff.
Yeah, I think I really agree with everything you just said. The other thing was that having two primary villains, or basically, two villains, it was kind of unclear which one was supposed to be the primary villain. For me, didn't work as well. I mean, there's his brother, who's like, I guess the primary villain. He's the one who's the big fight is with at the end, and the crucial Act 2 fight. But also, there's another character Black Manta?
Yeah.
Yeah, who is like a pirate who Aquaman sort of inadvertently kills his father while saving some Russian sailors right at the beginning of the film. And then Black Manta seeks revenge is kind of the plot line. And I think it's kind of odd because for me this didn't really work because like the big action scene at the midpoint of the film is against Black Manta, and it seemed oddly not connected to the personal journey of Aquaman / Arthur trying to overcome this sort of rivalry with his brother for the throne. It seems somewhat separate to it and seemed like almost like it was part of a different story or a different film. I kind of felt they should have, have one main villain, and obviously your main villain can have henchmen, but henchmen should be...
But he was basically a henchman, wasn't he? There were a couple of scenes where it was revealed he was in cahoots with the evil brother.
Yeah, no, he was, but I just felt that like his story seemed to not fit in. And also I kind of thought that the Black Manta was actually in some ways like a bit of a better villain. It's although a simple but quite powerful motivation in that Aquaman killed his dad and he's seeking revenge. And there's also a moment when Aquaman realizes all this hero stuff. It may seem like fun, but there are consequences to your actions, and that kind of worked better than just him having like my brother doesn't like me because I'm half human, half fish. And then so we're going to fight over it. And the fact that they were these two villains and they both had sort of different plots that weren't, although they were tangentially connected, they didn't seem to, I don't know, like, again, there's lots of things in this film didn't mesh. I felt like they wrote down a long list of stuff and everyone was like, we were going to have in this film, like, we're going to have some funny bits, we're going to have some action bits, we're going to have these characters and these villains, and this sort of stuff's going to go down. And someone looked at the list and went, yeah, I like all the things on that list. It's kind of like if you went into a restaurant and ordered, like, all the best food. I mean, yeah, all that food is good, but, like, it has to go together to form a nice meal, or else you're just kind of eating Mars bars on pizza, which, although seems fun, probably actually isn't.
Sorry, Scotland. But, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's my insight into the film. It's kind of like putting Mars bars on pizza. I mean, like, it's better than Batman v Superman, which was, like, trying to eat cardboard. So you technically identified things that are nice, but now can we get to cuisine?
Yeah, I don't know. I liked the idea of trying to form a universe around Aquaman instantly. I do think that the film could ultimately have used being shorter, and to be honest, the honest, obvious way to cut a chunk of length out of it would have been to just take out Black Manta.
Yeah, save him for the second one.
As you say, he had a decent arc, and they could probably have, had him cameo and done a bit of gentle setup, but trying to get through his entire origin and bringing him in as Black Manta in the film on top of. Then again, as you say, a lot of the Black Manta stuff and the Black Manta fight were in some ways more resonant and interesting than a lot of the actual plot. So part of me feels kind of sad to lose them.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just more evidence that the whole thing didn't... The thing is less than the sum of its parts. There you go, that's a smarter way of saying my weird pizza analogy.
Smarter and shorter. Yeah, I did enjoy watching this film. It is a fun ride to go on, and if you like a fun superhero film, and which I think might be one of the reasons I find it so fun and fascinating, even though we have, at this point, at length, identified some faults, is it's interesting to see a reasonably competent superhero film. Yeah, a basically enjoyable, okay superhero film, even if not structurally perfect, but is being made in something that is discernibly not the Marvel style.
Yeah.
It doesn't look or feel like a Marvel film.
Yeah.
And happily, they've also moved past the being mired in the Zack Snyder look, which even Wonder Woman was kind of stuck in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that film, but it was still clearly we're still trying to sort of do this Zack Snyder thing, aren't we? Whereas this does seem to have, although it's still got to deal with his basic design, well, to an extent, if they seem to be clearly moving past that to this slightly more interesting, colourful look.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of that. What DC needed to find a way to do is to do superhero films in a non-Marvel way. And the Zack Snyder alternative to Marvel clearly wasn't working. And they may have found something here with this. And like I say, maybe Justice League doesn't have much life in it as a meta universe, or shared universe, because all the films that involve crossover so far have been terrible. But if they can make a decent, trilogy of Wonder Woman films, a decent trilogy of Aquaman films, it won't be for nothing.
I mean, if they could just stop trying to find a shared look, then to be honest, I mean, if they're willing to just let directors do their own thing, I mean, I don't mind if the next DC film looks completely different to James Wan's Aquaman. If James Wan then wants to come back and do another one of these, fine, whatever. I mean, to be honest, the one fault you can sometimes find with Marvel is that they do airbrush their films into a bit of a house style. So if DC want to be an alternative to that, then that's not the worst thing in the world.
No, I agree with that. You can have Aquaman, he's a bit of a bonehead, but he's a good guy, and Wonder Woman can be, those films are really stylish. But yeah, I think what you said is, this film is like a roller coaster. And it's a good roller coaster. It's a great ride to be on, which is what you want from an action film. So and it was, even though I've just said quite a lot of nearly criticisms with it, I did enjoy it. I didn't get distracted. I thought it was beautifully realised, certainly but there was the whole underwater world looked amazing and just generally felt really good. A bit odd.
Aquaman felt really good.
It looked amazing and felt like a place that seems sort of real, or at least real in the sense that fictional places are, and it seemed internally consistent. And the film was beautiful to look at. There's some amazing effects bits. There was like a giant Cthulhu-esque sea monster at one point. There was some spectacular action scenes. They did a good job of which must have taken forever and been a lot difficult, just have it so that the people underwater looked like they were floating, which obviously must have been difficult because most people don't naturally float, and the fact they probably had to put special effects on every single frame of this film to make the sea people look vaguely realistic in and of itself is amazing. So spectacular effects work.
Yeah, I'm genuinely impressed they've put this much care and attention into a film which, firstly, is Aquaman, and secondly, it's kind of unclear whether this represents, them committing to Aquaman, or whether this is, them, as I think I sort of implied earlier, just thinking, well, we're not sure if we're carrying this universe forward, but we have made it now. But, fair enough. They haven't just shouted out. This is, as Alistair said, a well-realised film. The special effects are really something to behold. I would say this is a good film to collapse in front of at Christmas Day, if not for the fact that you can't yet get it in your house. But if it were available, this would be a very good film to collapse in front of on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
So, now that we've seen Aquaman, it's Christmas. This episode is coming out on, the 20th?
The 20th. That's the whole music.
Yes, so this episode is coming out on the 20th, so it's basically Christmas at this point. Merry Christmas, everyone. And in the spirit of this year's Christmas supplementary feature, it's time to ask the ultimate Cinematic Universe versus Cinematic Universe question. Who would throw a better Christmas party? The Justice League or the Avengers? I mean, there is an eternity of comic book Christmas specials to help us answer this one, but obviously Alistair hasn't read them, and I'll be honest, because I'm a bit of a snob, I don't tend to read that stuff either unless there's a good review to go with it. So we're going to have to work it out by ourselves. Alistair, what do you think?
Well, the way I interpreted this question is it's all about the kind of aesthetic that they would create. What's the vibe you get from the films that could be, bottled and put into a Christmas party. So, I mean...
That just sounds like you're drugging the punch, to be honest.
I'm putting, I don't know.
I've put the Avengers in this punch bowl.
I put some venom in the punch. Make it a bit stronger, I don't know.
Well, have you know Venom has yet to join the Avengers? Oh no, sorry, that's a lie. The Flash Thompson version of Venom joined the secret Avengers.
Okay.
So thank you for listening, nerds.
Cool. No, that's the sort of technically accurate analysis that people come to this podcast for. So, I mean, the obvious thing to say is an Avengers party would be more fun, like a party you sort of had when you were in your young teens, or when you were at university and it was kind of just a bit off the hook and fun, or people kind of ironically have in their 30s. Justice League party would be much more serious. It'd be much more like a sort of party you had in your late teens when everyone just sat in your bedroom listening to music and going yeah. Yeah,
You're still-
I hate the world. Yeah, I don't know.
Alistair listeners is still angry about the Zack Snyder films.
Yeah.
Like, even though we have had at least a couple of films past that now, it's still just can't get past his fury at the tedious teenage nihilism of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice.
No, I really can't let it go. But generally, I'm not in a habit of letting things go. Generally, so it might.
I'm sadly I don't really do on mic singing, or I would do a few courses of that song from Frozen. But
yeah.
I'm leaving that in.
Oh dear, probably sounded awful.
Yep.
Okay, but so yeah, the obvious thing to say is like the Avengers one would be more fun. The Justice League one might be like too serious and like sort of, I don't know, a gritty Christmas party. I don't think anyone really like
gritty Christmas party. Everyone has a fight club and tries to strangle each other with tinsel. Yeah.
But also seems to be probably what the Christmas parties are for like university academic departments when I guess everyone tries to show off how deep and clever they are.
I don't know. I tended to assume that rather than get into their goth seriousness, I just assumed a Justice League Christmas party would be basically a work Christmas party. It's like everyone would just turn up and make polite conversation.
Yeah. Because that is what Justice League films are known for, their polite conversation.
Yeah, overwrought grunting. Yeah, and to be fair, I can't really remember what the conversations were like in the Justice League film, to be honest, because they were just that well written and exciting.
Yeah.
There were a few scenes which Joss Whedon clearly wrote where they suddenly started doing jokes, and aside from that, they just said functional plot things to each other, didn't they?
Yeah, so I guess that is the cinematic equivalent of polite conversation. Yeah.
Nice functional Christmas party conversations. Did you remember to put the crisps on the table? Yes.
Yeah.
Whose house are you going to for Christmas this year? When's your last day of work? And do you have to travel far?
Yes, it is Christmas party season. These memories are very fresh in our mind.
And guys, if you hadn't thought of any of these A+ conversation starters, feel free to use them at your work Christmas party.
Yeah.
In the unlikely event that it hasn't already happened by the time we've released this episode. And certainly we've both had ours.
Yeah. I don't know, would Justice League 1 be the sort of party when everyone actually ends up talking about work in the end? Because, I don't know, in a sort of serious way that, like, people can't unwind and just say, have fun, so they have to, like, bring things back to work.
To work, probably. I mean, Batman's there, and that man does not have a life, so...
Or he doesn't have time off, yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know, as you fair, Batman would probably have to run away from the party to work. I mean, there would be, there's a few people who have, a bit of charisma and everyone sort of tries to look to for a bit of, actual fun and leadership. Your Superman, your Wonder Woman. And, I don't know, I mean, if it's the Jason Momoa Aquaman, to be fair, he's probably drunk in the corner.
I could imagine if Justice League is the work Christmas party, Superman's the one who does the kind of, it's been a good year at Justice League Incorporated. He's the sort of department head who does the sober speech at the beginning of the Christmas party when, before people get too hammered, and then politely probably puts a couple of £100 behind the bar so that his colleagues can have, a drink. So that seems the sort of thing that Superman would do. Aquaman's probably already drunk at that point and is sitting behind Superman making faces at everyone else while Superman does the speech and everyone else is trying really hard not to laugh.
Yeah, and then the Flash is just running around getting pissed. Wow, imagine the Flash drunk. That's going to be a mess.
Yeah. So...
Yeah, I mean, whereas the Avengers, I mean, the Avengers have this sort of, possibly because they are written, again, because they are primarily known for being written by Joss Whedon, who is a big practitioner of this vibe. They have that sort of found family thing going on that everyone loves. The weird American Christmas dream, wherein what you want is to choose your own family, so you can choose to spend your time with them at Christmas, instead of having to go home and argue with your mum, or dad, or etc. I don't know, as British people, which... we are. That particular vision of Christmas always seemed a bit weird to me because there's this bit where they go, it's so nice to be spending Christmas with the people we really care about. And it's always chimed a bit weirdly with my culture, wherein that's not really an option that's on the table.
I'm so glad to be spending Christmas with the people I'm obliged to spend.
I mean, I think a lot of that is because I think Americans have that joyful experience at Thanksgiving a month earlier. And then they can actually spend Christmas with whoever they actually want to spend it with. But yeah, here in Britain, by and large, if you're still vaguely in touch with your family and in the same country as them, you pretty much have to go see them.
Yeah, so the Avengers one is probably, again, like the party or the big knees up you have with your mates before you go back to family Christmas. I don't know which one of these is the family Christmas.
I'm not really sure. I mean, well...
it's not really a Christmas party.
Well, sadly, the Fantastic Four don't exist in film continuity. And also, they've never been written as a family, because the Fantastic Four films all suck.
Yeah. But I guess also, we're talking about Christmas parties, which I guess is the things that happen. Christmas Day isn't really a Christmas party, it's Christmas Day.
Yeah, true. So yeah, Avengers is, I guess, your sort of friends party.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess...
Starts with a cheeky Nando's, ends with people doing Jaeger bombs and spoons.
I'm so glad that all the years we've known each other, you've never made me have a part of the Christmas party that involves either of those things, because neither of them sound amazingly festive, although I hear Nando's are now doing peri-peri gravy.
Okay, and this podcast is brought to you by...
This podcast is brought to you by restaurants other than Nando's, because I can't believe the tone I said that in is really going to get you out there.
No.
Like, seriously, peri-peri gravy. But yeah, anyway.
Avengers always has that sense of easy fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is what you want from the dynamic of your friends, yeah.
Imagine that party scene at the start of Age of Ultron, only with tinsel.
Yeah.
Everyone's trying to lift
Yeah, Thor's hammer
whilst getting smashed on bolt wire.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of feeling you get from the Avengers.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, to be fair, I do make a lot of jokes about how they're all colleagues. The famous "he's a friend" from the work joke.
Yeah.
Bagblog just before Thor and the Hulk beat each other up.
Yeah.
Something else that will probably happen at the Avengers Christmas party. But despite the fact that they're all colleagues being milked for jokes, there is always the vague understanding that they're all mates and they love each other on some level. Maybe a bit less post-Civil War.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I imagine the Avengers Christmas party, I'm kind of imagining the pre-Civil War Avengers. Maybe you'd have to have two separate Christmas parties now. Although maybe they'd have to merge back into one now that half of the world has disappeared after the events of Avengers Infinity War.
Would it be like one of those work Christmas dues when everyone has the Christmas party, has the dinner part separately in their teams, just with the people, they're closest to, and everyone, I don't know, again, meets up at the usual post-work watering hole later for like the big drinks together.
Well, yeah, the official Christmas party would be held in their separate post-Civil War factions, and then everyone except for maybe the main serious leaders would all go and get drunk together.
Yeah,
I like to think that, except for maybe like Captain America and Iron Man themselves, everyone's kind of chill about it, really.
Yeah,
it's like But how do you feel about the Sokovia Accords? Yeah, still against it, you? Still kind of broadly for it, but
It's probably one of those things like GDPR. Everyone's tired of talking about it all year at work. They don't want it to come up at the Christmas party.
Again, I liked that film, but yeah, the hot, sexy topic of legislation as your central conflict builds your movie around, I can see how some might make fun of it.
Yeah. The Justice League party would probably be more expensive and lavish, as we point out, is that Marvel do tend to try and not keep the budgets from spiraling out of control on their films, whereas the Justice League approach does seem to be the more money, the better. We're going to and obviously, like I said, we just said Aquaman looks amazing. The World War I stuff from Wonder Woman looks amazing as well. And maybe, I kind of thought maybe the Justice League Christmas party would be like one of those big, showy, really expensive, like corporate Christmas parties that when they hire like an entire West End club and like for like everyone, and it's really like completely lavish, but also kind of like sort of a bit sort of like soulless. It's like, well, we don't have fun here, but we do have lots of money. And maybe the Avengers one, I think, is like one of those like smaller, intimate, like kind of work Christmases when it's like a small organisation or a small team. Everyone knows everyone. Everyone basically gets along. You have a good dynamic, and then you just but the Christmas party's fairly low key. You just go to the pub for some turkey or whatever and sprouts, and then a few pints of Wetherspoons. But everyone kind of has a good time and enjoys each other's company.
I could definitely imagine Iron Man in Wetherspoons.
He's ordering on the app. He likes the table service.
Having programs the app into his armour and just sitting there, having configured it so every time he snaps his fingers, they have to think of another garlic.
Yeah.
Because of course Tony Stark would drink endless garlic.
Famous British terrible beer. Yeah. Well, he's supposed to be an alcoholic, so maybe.
I mean, maybe someone would stop him from creating the finger snap garlic ordering system.
Might be.
As he falls onto the floor, snapping his fingers, and the emergency drainage system with his armour desperately tries to get the piss out of him faster than it can flow out.
That's a disgusting image. Thanks for that, Nick.
There have been plenty of post-alcoholic Iron Man cartoons of, so Iron Man's an alcoholic. I wonder how many times he's vomited inside that mask. Quite some question, but it's been asked several times, including in official comedy Marvel comics. I don't think they've ever covered it in the serious ones.
No. I think, the dynamic for the Avengers one is that obviously Captain America is again the guy who stands up and does like the formal speech bit, and which everyone sort of tries not to make fun of because he's that sort of upstanding, right on guy who'd want to do. It's been a great year for Avengers. We've done plenty of avenging. There was that mess up in Sokovia, but we don't want to talk about that. I think Hulk is the colleague who can put his beer away and really knows it. Thor is probably the colleague who used to drink a lot and has had a kid and his tolerance has dropped and he's now trying to keep pace with the Hulk and probably gets a bit too hammered and ends up having to be put in a taxi at 9 o'clock. I was going like, I love you guys.
I don't know. It depends how grim your interpretation of the Hulk is. Whether you want the version of the Hulk who's like this really repressed guy who at any moment could explode into monstrous life and do something incredibly regrettable.
Yeah, but I don't know, I sort of kind of felt the vibe was like, Avengers seems like a more internet-friendly affair, whereas the Justice League has money.
Yeah. At last, they can build the moon-based watchtower from the comics and teleport everyone up there. And anyone who pisses them off just gets teleported into the middle of the desert or something.
Yeah, you get teleported after the Christmas party.
Yeah. It's a particularly big trip, just appearing in the Sahara when you're already pissed, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm already dehydrated.
Oh dear, this is a death sentence.
Yeah.
Bugger.
And what about the soundtrack? I guess Marvel has plenty of AC/DC, which is good party music.
Well, whereas DC has thudding Hans Zimmer scores.
Yeah, which isn't party music. It might be impressive when you booked out an entire West End club. So the sound you want to fill it with.
Nothing else. Aquaman has the Pitbull cover of Toto's Africa, which played very briefly in Aquaman. In the bit where they went to Africa, funnily enough. One of those bits of gloriously over-literal music choice.
Yeah, that was odd choice. The other thing, speaking of soundtrack for Aquaman, which I noticed, and I wasn't able to get into the review section, is, so Aquaman's theme has this, like, little guitar riff in it. Like, whenever there's a close-up in him, there's a kind of... It's like one riff, and I kind of thought like, oh, they're going to have like a guitar in his theme, and like, no, it's just like one note. It happens a few times in the film. This is like the note of Aquaman.
It's one tiny guitar riff, isn't there?
Yeah.
Sort of sounds a bit like the one they do for Wonder Woman, but only that one's longer and better.
Yeah, it sounds like the beginning of a riff, but it's just one note, and it's just... So I guess on the DC Christmas party, there's Aquaman's note, and then the rest is the Hans Zimmer score, and the Pitbull cover of Toto Africa. I don't know what the Pitman cover of Toto Africa would be like.
That's probably a bit of a deep cut for the listeners.
Google Pitman. It takes a nation of tossers, if you don't know what we're talking about.
Which you almost definitely don't. and I think we have one listener who might understand that reference, and everyone else is phenomenally baffled.
Yeah. Anyway, you won't regret it if you Google.
You may well regret it.
Okay. What have we learned?
Very little. I think this has probably not been our most educational and insightful question, but it's Christmas, and all I can say is that despite the appearances to the contrary, we are both stone cold sober.
Yeah. So...
Unlike the Justice League and Avengers at their parties.
It's Christmas party season, so here's some frivolous fun for the podcast. We will get back to the critical theory as applied to the Lego movie next year.
Oh god, the worst one is they're releasing the sequels. That could well actually happen.
Thanks for listening. If you have enjoyed this episode of Moderate Fantasy Violence, then please subscribe on iTunes or on your podcatcher of choice. Whilst you're there, please leave us a review, as it helps others find out about the show. You can also visit our website, moderatefantasyviolence.com, where you can listen to other episodes of the podcast, bonus audio clips, and short written pieces from Nick and myself. As it's nearly the end of the year, Nick and I will be posting our reflections on pop culture in 2018 on the website soon, so go read them.
And if you want to follow us on social media, we are available on Twitter as @MFV Podcast and on Facebook as just search Moderate Fantasy Violence and the purple logo will pop up, where you can learn fun tidbits, such as when last episode was a week late due to my computer crashing. Sorry about that. Should be back on schedule now, as long as we get this one out on the date that we earlier said it's meant to come out on. And yep, that is it. Thank you for listening. I've been Nick Bryan. You can find me on the internet at nickbryan.com, where it probably is too late to order my new comic for Christmas, but order it anyway. It's a treat for the new year. Or just give it to your friends as a very belated Christmas present. Or you can follow me on Twitter as @NickMB, or I continue to occasionally try and post on Instagram as @nickbryan.com.
I've been Alistair Ball. You can follow me on Twitter at AlistairJRBall, and you can find more of my writing at redtrainblog.com. This is our last episode of the year, so Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all our listeners. We love each and every one of you.
Do we?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the party line and we're sticking to it. Join us at the start of 2019 to find out what we thought were the best and worst films and TV of 2018. See you then. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Is Iron Man swimming in fluids inside that tin can? Discuss.
That is wild.
Should that have been our follow-up question?
If they do Iron Man 4, it can be. We'll save it for Avengers Endgame. Ugh.
Yes. Yeah, this is our discussion of Avengers Endgame. Will Iron Man piss himself?
At some point. How many times has he relieved himself inside that suit? Yeah.